Yes, I mom guilt. I think those 3 years I had the most mom guilt. The highest. I mean, and I tell women, you have to figure out why you're doing something. If you're doing it for the right reasons, then you tell yourself that, it's all for good.
CTA with Patricia, video 6.
Welcome back. You know how I know CTAs are of value? I think we've been speaking from 9 a.m. It's slightly, what's the time right now, Izo? Past 2. We've been speaking for that long. And in this CTA, we've not even gotten to 2001. That's how much value is in your story. By now, normally after lunch, we are maybe at 2010 with somebody's story. But I am loving any bit and I am in no hurry to get to the end. I'm loving the nuggets as we go. If you're catching us here, please do your life a favor. Start this from the very beginning. This is such a entertaining yet education-packed CTA. As Patricia Ithau shares her life story. Patricia, just before we left, you had talked about your time in South Africa. But then the career growth, your story shows your career trajectory so well. From, for example, getting the international experience, coming back home, coming to South Africa. But in South Africa, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that you are Southern Africa. It's not just the country of South Africa. What's that like now working with? In which countries are you working with?
At that time, because I was, I set up and then was heading this, what they call the Food Innovation Center. So when we say innovation for Unilever at the time, was trying to figure out how could we drive more harmonized food product innovations across the continent. Also, over my time there is when Unilever did the Best Foods acquisition. Best Foods being the business that brought in Knorr, as it's called. Knorr. You know Knorr.
Yes.
The core, yes. That one, Knorr. And so we already had Royco, which was our biggest brand, now also then Knorr. But it was good because the countries were...
called Knorr?
It's Knorr. That's how you pronounce it, Knorr.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think... part of the best things, for example, was, because the acquisition was based predominantly in South Africa, where they did the biggest acquisition, because Knorr also had Robertson's, which is all the spices that used to be there at the time, was trying to figure out how even we could get it past the competition authority from an acquisition point of view.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, I think, over that time, traveling across the businesses were Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria, and then, of course, East African markets.
What?
And then Zimbabwe and Malawi. Those were the Unilever markets, right? In sub-Saharan Africa, was just understanding the difference across the continent. I think that's the first time I started to appreciate the nuances and the diversity in the markets. One of my first tasks was, when we're trying to figure it all out, was doing a research across the continent. So we're going to have focus groups with all these women across all those different markets. And it was to try and figure out, what are your food needs? What is the future? What does it look like? What impacts you? Because one of the tasks was also to harmonize, say, like a Royco brand across a region and make sure we were going to get the right innovations to put behind Royco. Royco had a Muchuzi mix, but Muchuzi mix never got out of Kenya.
Yes.
Yeah, we called it, I'm trying to remember the name, was not Chakalaka mix in South Africa, but across the rest of the region, it's not something they used at that time. But when you look at the cube, on the other hand, the bouillon cube, that, on the other hand, was very big. It was very big in West Africa. In fact, West Africa, they can't cook without a bouillon cube, in all their rice and whatever else. But the fun of it, and this is why I said my curious side used to come through, was watching people and understanding how, different societies are so different. Imagine, I'd start in South Africa, you're sitting in a room, you look at the way the women come, first the hair.
Yes.
Couldn't be bothered. Those days, it was a struggle. When they say it's a struggle, it was a struggle. And they just walk in and everything else. And you come to Kenya where they try a little bit, but not as much, all relaxed. Then by the time you get to West Africa, the effort, the everything that's come. By the time I'd get to Abidjan, women have come in dressed to the nines, looking really good, hair slick, everything perfect. I'm like, oh. The journey as you go to South Africa, the journey as you go, and you start to realize the different nuances in the dress. But the bigger thing is then I'll do it physically. And it's when you understand the care and the importance different cultural things have. In East Africa, food for us is functional. You chamusha, you put, it's only now these YouTube things are making us love that beautiful roaming chef and all those guys doing shwa and things like that. Those days,
we're stomach-based.
We're stomach-based. You chamusha. I mean, even now you go to posh clubs and the thing they're serving you is tumbukizo. Tumbukizo is everything just boiled. How is that? How is that? You know what I'm saying? But you'd go, and I'd go to Abidjan. We start cooking at 8 in the morning.
Oh.
For a meal that's going to be cooked in the evening. Because you start by pounding the yam, and then you put it together. And then the brewing, the boil this spice, this fish, this, mix that. Nigeria, this particular fish, then you get this, and then a snail, then there's that, then you deep fry it, and then you boil it, and then you deep fry it, then you mix it in this sauce, which has got all sorts of blending things. Now I come to Kenya, tumbukiza. Half an hour. Just throw it into a pot, a bit of salt, and that is it. But these are some of the things I really enjoyed, and that's what I realized. I love experiences. And it's interesting how work can align to who you are as well, and the things you enjoy. And because of my curious nature, creative nature and everything, that's what I love. That ability to go and see different markets, sit with different people, ask them different questions, observe the differences in the way they do things. So yeah, that was good fun. But having said that, South Africa, from a personal perspective, was tough in other ways, in that I was there alone. I was fortunate. The nanny who had gotten with my kids, I managed to get her to get a visa and come with me as a dependent. So at least I had her, and I had the stability of her. And then I had another local nanny, whatever, how Tandy would help and whatever else. But it was good because then I had the support system. So even when I went, I felt there was somebody who could look after the children.
I get it.
Yeah, when I was not there. But it was still tough. I remember the first time I went to Brazil, I was out in Sao Paulo, was it Rio? I can't remember. And then I get phone calls. And these kids aren't well. This nanny is saying she doesn't know. But the beauty is the system I'd set up in South Africa. The doctor was closed and everything was closed. The doctor comes, checks. So now I am feeling guilty. I'm so far away. And it was a one trip where I hadn't managed to get. I knew I was going far away. But their dad was not able to be there. There was no family member I could be. So it's just this nanny there with these children in South Africa. And I come back and I remember the kids looking, by the way, it turned out they had chicken pox.
Oh.
That is what it is. I arrive back and I find these two kids looking at me accusingly in their little bikini with all white, because to help with the H, they put that calamine with big things on their face. And they're looking at me.
For us as kids,
Yeah, it was called calamine. And they're looking at me like, what is this? You've left us here by ourselves. The guilt kids can put on you. Yeah. We've been suffering. They couldn't talk. They were young. Yeah. But the words, the accusation, you could see it in their faces, which was very, very interesting.
So you're balancing that mom guilt versus...
Yes, I mom guilt. I think those 3 years I had the most mom guilt. The highest. I mean, and I tell women, you have to figure out why you're doing something. If you're doing it for the right reasons, then you tell yourself that, it's all for good. There's a goal here as to why you're doing this. And that's what helps you live with the guilt. I'll never forget my older daughter. Her father had come for one of his visits. And then when he's leaving in his little hand luggage, she had packed her little dress, a little panty and whatever, and I go into his bag and, as I look into his bag, I'm like, what are Mwenny's things doing in your suitcase? She said, I don't know. And then you ask her, Mwenny, did you put your clothes in there? She says, yes.
I'm going.
And I said, how come? What is? Well, I'm going back with Papa. I'm going to go look after Papa because we've all abandoned him.
Oh.
I mean, when a child tells you things like that, you can imagine you start asking yourself, oh gosh, have I done the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? This child, she's going to hold it against me for the rest of her life, And but you do it because there's an end in sight. There's an end in sight. And yeah, so those are some of the moments. But other than that, it was such a fantastic experience. Now they look back and they love it. In fact, the young one for a while thought she was born in South Africa for many years. And yeah, so that was South Africa. But it was a fantastic experience. It cut me and grew me in so many different ways. And when they say the experiences that grow you in different ways, and then also they have the impact. Because after that, me doing that, it opened the path for many other women who had partners, married, or whatever else, were able to say we could do it. And then because I was in the organization, now I'd got into a position of leadership and influence. When I got back, I was able to drive the negotiation for them to have even more comfortable terms when they traveled.
Because you were
because I had done it, I had experienced it, so I could sit down and say, you know what, this is what you need to do. But the biggest thing I tell them, please do this with all the consent and whatever. Don't ever let me be accused for the person who helped you break up something. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Don't use this so that afterwards people turn around and they come back, it's because of you my marriage broke up. You know, it was you did that. I'm like, no. Tell me you're doing it because you want to do it. It's a career choice that you want and you want to grow and you want to do it. So these are some of the things. I think that's where the soft mentoring started coming in, and when I reflect on my life, those are some of the soft mentoring experiences that I reflect on, and I feel good about. That sometimes example is also the best living thing. Yeah,
you are a pioneer in a lot of different things. So okay, let's transition from South Africa. Now you come back to Kenya, and you come back to Kenya hitting your goal, which was
I was a marketing director for the region. I love that.
2000 and
this was 2004, I think. And I came back and it was fantastic. You have ground floor, executive suite, big office, and you can finally eat in the executive dining room. The only thing I regret about that thing, I mean, the perks were good. And those days, I think it was a different ball game in the directors. And I always tell people, it's incredible what all these compliance and taxes have done. I don't know which is worse. Both of them, actually, the compliance and taxes have done. Because in those days, as a director, you could get so many benefits that were not taxed. Yeah? You come back, you're a director, there are particular things you are entitled to. You're entitled to have your house furnished. You're entitled to a generator. You're entitled to a nanny, you're entitled to security, you're entitled to a holiday, one holiday every single year. You're entitled to all those things. No tax. Until the tax man started finding all these loopholes that these guys are being compensated. There's a compensation. Oh, but it was heaven those days. So that was one aspect. I really enjoyed coming back and trying to transform, make a difference. And the business had struggled because while I was away, that's when Kimbo was sold.
Wow.
And Kimbo was 30% of the business, so the business had shrunk.
Why would
Because we're battling, couldn't make margins out of it. It was very difficult, given our structures, to make money out of the edible oils business, as they called it. So that's when Bidco bought all that business. So that I came in and that transaction had just finished. So the business had shrunk 30% when I was coming back. But the other thing is then, of course, I came in, you've done that. Then that's the first cycle of reorganizations I had to start. Because imagine now you are a 30% smaller business, you have to start doing the reorg, and turn things around. And also the thing is, that's why I talk about size of business and arrogance. How you become so comfortable that you don't realize all these people you think are small, they've all become big. And here you're battling to grow. Toss has grown. You know, you sold Kimbo. All these other things. Vaseline now, there's Milking Jelly, and Valon, which have grown. You know, so everything. There's all these local guys who've been chipping under you, and you thought, they didn't know how to do these things. You know, we're gonna grow.
That's wow. There's a lot you're saying. I'm trying to unpack it slowly. So first and foremost, you're a marketing director, but you're definitely part of the reorganization then of the company I get it. Number two, what does pay look like from the starting? I'm just, a lot of the questions that guys get here, I like sharing sort of numbers if you can, but at least until you don't want to share, it's okay. But then at least when you first joined, I heard you say you were at 11K.
Yeah, I've got the pay slip, it was 11,000. And by the way, the year before were saying, gosh, you guys are being paid so much better. We started at 9,000 shillings, but it was a lot of money.
And then it goes right.
Yeah, so you grow with time. I think that the director role was fantastic because, as I've said, all those perks.
Yes,
those days you could comfortably do a remuneration which had the fixed elements and then it had the soft benefits.
Wow.
So that's your comprehensive. But then when the taxes started to catch up, but they started to capture all these benefits, people started moving more to consolidated salaries. Then you just get taxed in one whammy. Yeah. But I mean, I said there were a couple of things. One is that aspect of the taxes, which was the toughest. But the other tough thing, I came back from South Africa where everything is all health. Health, you run, you walk, you do what? I had one-way watchers. I mean, I came back thin, nice thing, really. You come down, you've got that executive dining room there. You've got a lovely secretary who at 10 o'clock, she's bringing mandazis, samosa. 4 o'clock, mandazi, samosa. Let me tell you, within the space of 6 months, and I was never able to shed that weight again. Honestly, many years later, 2 decades later, I keep saying that 10 kilos has never left me. And I can see it in those mandazis and samosa. I curse our Kenyan culture of mandazis and samosas. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, when do you begin feeling like, or by the time you come back, are people headhunting you? Are people being like...
When I came, I settled. I wanted it.
I
wanted it. I really wanted it. Yes. And then after I settled for a couple of years, I became chair of the Marketing Society of Kenya.